when we think about the game and we think about the NFL, like the NFL is what 24/7, 365. There's always action going. And even though we have hit the wave of free agency and we still have a month before the draft, transactions are being made daily that will really impact the draft. And what we saw is the first wave of free agency, we saw the notable names go, and then there's this lag where you don't see anything. Well, it appears now that things are back to popping. And one of the moves that was made was about the quarterback situation. And it's actually two moves. It's Jameis Winston signs with the New York Giants. And so he signed that last week. It was 2-year, $8 million backup money. So Jameis Winston will be presumably QB2. But the move that happened earlier this week, Russell Wilson signing with the New York Giants, man, it is a major move for the Giants. And it's not major because of what Russell Wilson could be as a franchise quarterback. But what it does by securing him, it really opens up the board for them when it comes to the draft with the third overall pick. And we'll talk about that part of it because that's a huge piece of the puzzle and why it was so important to get Russell Wilson done now to give them the opportunity to really hone in on what they want to do on draft day. And Russell Wilson, what the Giants are getting is, look, they're getting a 13-year vet, a guy who has been like a 9-10-time Pro Bowler, a guy who's won a Super Bowl, led a team to another Super Bowl. He is someone who's been really, really productive throughout his career. And you think about, you look at these numbers, I'm reading these numbers off, and they're kind of ridiculous, right? 64.7 completion rating, completion percentage, 46,000 plus passing yards, 350 passing touchdowns, and 111 interceptions. So in general, throughout his career, he's really been a really good caretaker of the ball. And that's really important when you think about Brian Daboll's offense. Last season with the Pittsburgh Steelers, 63.7 completion rate, 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And he played fairly well for the early part of his tenure with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But everyone likes to take Russell to task for the last 5 games of the year and how the offense fell apart. The funny thing, when I look at those numbers and stats, he had 6 touchdowns, he had 4 interceptions, he took 18 sacks. He took 33 sacks on the season. And so his production was very, very similar to the way that it had been. Yeah, they lost 5 straight games and he had 4 interceptions over the course of deal. But Russell Wilson wasn't solely responsible for why the Pittsburgh Steelers lost. And if you really look at it over the last 2 years, he's still been a fairly solid player. Now, is he the Russell Wilson that everyone was begging to cook and allow him to do his thing and let him run around and be dangerous? No, he's no longer that player. But Russell Wilson is still very capable of playing winning football. The reason why Russell Wilson is appealing to Brian Daboll and the Giants right now is, understand these guys are on a win now mandate. They have to win to be able to stay in their jobs. As much as we would love for them to get a young quarterback, the odds of a young quarterback popping right away, small, slim. We saw Jaden Daniels do it, and the year before we saw C.J. Stroud do it, but the overwhelming majority of young players really struggle as a starting quarterback. What the Giants have done is they have secured 2 veteran quarterbacks to help them navigate this treacherous terrain in the NFC East as they're trying to find a way to win enough games to stay on the job so they really can fully rebuild the team on the fly. Well, Russell Wilson does that. And the reason why I say Russell Wilson does that and can do that for the Giants is because Brian Daboll led the Giants to the playoffs with Daniel Jones as a quarterback. Daniel Jones had 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Daniel Jones was played and utilized as a game manager. They didn't ask him to do a lot. They had Saquon Barkley in the backfield. They gave it to Saquon, threw it to Saquon. Everything was all Saquon. But more importantly, it was a very balanced approach that kind of leaned into the running game, didn't ask the quarterback to do a lot, and they leaned on their defense. The funny thing in talking to Brian Daboll during that year, he talked about more games being lost than won and how you don't want to always tell your team to, hey, don't turn it over, don't mess it up. But there's value to being super conservative with the team, making every game go into the fourth quarter and finding a way to win it in the fourth quarter. If you go back and look at Russell's career, that is when he has traditionally brought the magic in the fourth quarter. You're talking about one of the best players in NFL history in terms of fourth quarter comebacks, game-winning drives. So what the New York Giants need to do to play the style that helped them get into the playoffs is they need to play a very conservative style of game They need to lean into Russell Wilson being more of a game manager than a playmaker. But in the fourth quarter, they need to allow Russell Wilson to cook to win the game. If you're the New York Giants and you've seen that formula work well for you previously, it now gives you confidence that you can go back to the same blueprint and do it all over again. Won't be the same because I would say this: Russell Wilson is a much better player than Daniel Jones. But what could be the same is the level of success that this team has, because Russell Wilson doesn't give wins away to an opponent, which will allow Brian Daboll to call the game differently than he's had to the past couple of years. Now, how does it impact the team as it relates to the draft? Well, now you always hear teams talk about this. The Giants can literally take the best player available and they can't go wrong. And in thinking about taking the best player available, scenarios that you continue to run through or hear about, okay, what if the top two quarterbacks are gone? Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward are gone in any particular order. Right now, the New York Giants are now looking at Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, two of the best players on the board. In Travis Hunter, you get a 2-for-1 special. You get someone who can start on offense, but also make contributions on defense in your nickel and sub packages. You have someone opposite Malik Neighbors, who is just as dangerous with the ball in his hands. You have someone who is a mega star who is going to light up Broadway when he shows up. A lot of positives to bring in Travis Hunter on board. If Travis Hunter isn't the pick, then you have Abdul Carter, who is the hybrid linebacker, pass rusher coming off the edge, wreaking havoc on foes, who will upgrade the athleticism, upgrade the pass rush, and jump in with a rotation of Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, and him to create a three-headed monster that really attacks the quarterback at all times. You're allowed to stay fresher. You're able to be more dynamic on defense. And Shane Bowen has a lot of freedom and flexibility to be able to come up with these creative and unique personnel packages to find ways to get all of the best players on the field. If you don't like those guys, then the names that you're talking about, Will Campbell and Armand Mimbo and those guys, I don't think is a true consideration, nor do I think Ashton Jeanty would be a consideration, even though this team has always been better when they've had a workhorse runner to kind of lead the way. I'm not saying Jeanty is in range. I'm just saying it would be interesting to see if they could go get a 1-for-1 replacement for Saquon Barkley, despite the running back last year having 1,000 yards. So we'll see. Team and win now mode. The draft is on the horizon, but the signing of Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston allows the Giants to move off of their stubborn commitment to the quarterback to now being able to look at the best player available and allow him to be the pick at number 3.